Here is a piece of math that feels so obvious nobody questions it. Make more money, end up richer. Double your salary, roughly double your wealth. It is the entire premise behind chasing a promotion, switching jobs for a raise, grinding toward a bigger number on the offer letter. And it is also, and this is going to sound insane at first, one of the least reliable predictors of who actually ends up wealthy in America. Today, I am going to show you real households earning $300,000 a year who report living paycheck to paycheck, the six-figure earners quietly carrying credit card debt, the 1960s law that predicted exactly why this keeps happening, and the one number that actually determines whether a raise makes you richer or just funds a nicer version of broke. Quick thing first, because I have to. Everything I am about to say is general information and my own opinion, not financial advice. Check every number against your own situation, and if I got something wrong, the comments are right there. I am a cartoon man with a round head. My salary negotiation strategy is blinking twice. And no, I am not about to tell you that chasing a higher salary is pointless. That is a different, much dumber video. Let us go find out what actually separates a bigger paycheck from real wealth. Here is the twist nobody expects, and it is decades older than you would guess. Back in 1960, a British historian named C. Northcote Parkinson wrote a book called The Law and the Prophets, and buried inside it is a single sentence that quietly predicts almost every high-earner money problem you will ever hear about. Expenditure rises to meet income. Read that again. Not, expenditure might rise. Not, some people let expenditure rise. Rises. As a near-default tendency, the more money that flows in, the more spending quietly expands to swallow it. A bigger apartment, a nicer car, more takeout, a slightly more expensive version of every single decision you already make. None of those individual choices feels reckless in the moment. Each one feels earned. But stack them up, and the salary and the spending rise together, on basically the same slope, so the gap between them, which is the only part that actually becomes wealth, never gets any wider. You can get a raise every single year of your career and still end every single year in almost exactly the same financial position, because the raise did its job perfectly. It just did the wrong job, funding a bigger lifestyle instead of a bigger gap. Okay, that is a nice historical quote, but surely real six-figure earners do not actually live this out, right? Here is where it stops being theory. In Goldman Sachs Asset Management's own 2025 retirement survey found that 40% of Americans earning over $300,000 a year say they are living paycheck to paycheck. 40% of people earning more than 5 times the median household income. Push a little higher and it barely improves. 41% of people earning between $300,000 and $500,000 report the exact same thing. Goldman's own explanation for this is not, these people are secretly broke by circumstance. It is lifestyle creep. Their words, luxuries quietly becoming necessities for that income bracket, the same way a smaller raise upgrades someone else's grocery budget. This is not a story about people who are bad with money in some obvious, careless way. It is Parkinson's law playing out in real survey data, decades after he wrote the sentence. The income kept rising, the spending rose right along with it, and the paycheck-to-paycheck feeling never actually left. It just got a lot more expensive. Let us zoom out from the extreme high end, because you might not be earning $300,000, and this still applies to you. A NerdWallet survey found that 37% of households earning $100,000 or more currently carry revolving credit card debt, not paid off monthly, actually carrying a balance, accruing interest, on top of a six-figure income. And look at how the paycheck-to-paycheck number actually moves as income climbs, instead of assuming it disappears. Among people earning under $50,000 a year, roughly 77% live paycheck to paycheck. Between $50,000 and $100,000, that drops to around 65 to 67%. Above $100,000, it drops again, to somewhere around 43 to 45%. Notice what actually happened there. Income does help. The number keeps falling as income rises, and pretending money does not matter at all would be its own kind of dishonest. but the number never hits zero. Almost half of six-figure earners are still in the same paycheck-to-paycheck category as someone making a fraction of their income. A bigger salary shrinks the problem. It does not automatically solve it, because the problem was never really about the size of the number coming in. Now, here is where I have to be fair, because income does not matter would be just as wrong as income is all that matters. And this is the part that actually resolves the whole paradox. Research from economists Emmanuel Saez and Gabriel Zuckman, tracking savings rates across the income distribution, found something genuinely striking. The overall U.S. savings rate, driven mostly by the bottom 90% of earners, sits around a thin 4% of income. The top 1% of earners, meanwhile, save something in the neighborhood of 38% of their income. That is not a small gap. That is nearly 10 times the savings rate. So income clearly can turn into real wealth for the households where spending did not rise in lockstep with the paycheck. The honest version of this story is not salary is meaningless. It is that salary is a multiplier, not a guarantee. A bigger income multiplies whatever savings rate you already had going in. If that rate was near zero, a bigger number multiplied by near zero is still near zero. If that rate was healthy, a bigger income turns a good habit into real wealth fast. The paycheck was never the variable that mattered most. The gap next to it always was. So if the gap is the real variable, how do you actually protect it, given that Parkinson's law is quietly working against you by default? The honest answer is not have more willpower. Willpower loses to lifestyle creep constantly for smart, disciplined people, precisely because every individual upgrade feels reasonable in the moment. The answer that actually works is structural. You remove the decision instead of trying to win it every time. Every time your income rises, a raise, a bonus, a new job, redirect a fixed chunk of that specific increase into savings or investing automatically, before it ever lands somewhere your lifestyle can see it and start expanding to match. Not your whole raise. Nobody sticks with a plan that feels like punishment. Even locking in half of every future raise, while still enjoying the other half, means your gap grows a little wider with every single increase for the rest of your career, instead of staying flat forever. That is the entire fix. Not earning less, not refusing every nice thing, just making sure the number that determines your actual wealth, income minus spending, is structurally protected before your spending ever gets a vote. So let us put the whole story back together. A bigger salary makes you richer sounds like simple math, but Parkinson's 1960 observation that expenditure rises to meet income predicts exactly why it so often does not. Spending tends to expand right alongside the paycheck, by default, one reasonable feeling upgrade at a time. That is not a theory. 40% of people earning over $300,000 a year report living paycheck to paycheck. 37% of six-figure households carry credit card debt. And even as income climbs from under $50,000 to over $100,000, the paycheck-to-paycheck rate falls from around 77% to still nearly half, shrinking, never vanishing. But the top 1% of earners save roughly 38% of their income, against a national average near 4%. Proof that income genuinely can build wealth for the households where the gap between earning and spending didn't get swallowed first. Here is the honest reframe. Your salary was never the number that determines whether you get richer. The gap next to it is. Protect that gap automatically every time your income rises, and a bigger salary finally does what everyone assumed it already did. Everything everyone believes, fact-checked, every week. Subscribe if that sounds like your kind of trouble. Either way, thanks for being someone who actually checks. This was wrong all along. Go protect the gap. The raise will take care of itself.